So picture this for a second. You've spent years, maybe even decades, mastering English grammar.
Right, doing all the drill.
Exactly. You have memorized every single irregular verb on the list. You've built up this incredibly impressive vocabulary. You know the exact difference between affect and effect, which is,
Was hard enough on its own, yeah.
oh, totally. And you wouldn't dare dangle a participle. But then when you actually open your mouth to speak, something feels, I don't know, slightly off.
Like the pieces aren't quite clicking.
Yeah, exactly. You sound perfectly clear, absolutely precise, completely grammatical, and yet somehow you sound exactly like a GPS navigation system giving driving directions.
And turn left in 100 feet. Yeah, it is a notoriously frustrating plateau for language learners.
Right.
You do everything technically right according to the rules you were taught, but the human element is just missing.
It's just not there.
Right. People might understand your words perfectly well, but they struggle to connect with your rhythm.
Well, today, we are figuring out exactly why that happens. And it turns out the very textbooks that taught you English might be the exact reason you sound like a robot.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
It really is.
Yeah.
We're using this incredible linguistic article today called Breaking the Code, Why You Sound Like a Robot and How to Fix It. And our mission for this deep dive is to deconstruct this phenomenon that linguists call textbook syndrome.
Yes.
We want to uncover the secret, slightly messy mechanics of sounding human. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because it feels incredibly counterintuitive that knowing the rules perfectly is the exact thing making your speech sound unnatural.
It does seem backward, but to truly master a spoken language, you sometimes have to, well, consciously unlearn the written textbook.
Unlearn it. Wow.
Yeah. Written English and spoken English operate almost like two distinct dialects. The source material actually refers to this trap as the illusion of perfection.
The illusion of perfection. I mean, that makes sense. We rely on the written rules because they feel safe, right?
Exactly. In writing, especially academic or professional writing, we're trained to expand our words for maximum clarity. We are taught to write, I do not know, or I cannot attend.
Right, you spell it all out.
But applying that same formal rule to spoken English completely breaks the social code of a normal conversation.
The text gives this fantastic side-by-side comparison for this. We have the robot version, which is, I will not be able to attend because I am busy.
So rigid.
Very rigid. And then we have the human version.
Right.
I won't be able to make it because I'm tied up.
Right.
The first one is technically flawless, but it just feels stiff. Kind of makes me think of an analogy. Speaking without contractions in everyday conversation is a lot like showing up to a casual beach party wearing a full, custom-tailored tuxedo.
Oh, that's a perfect way to look at it.
Right. Like the tailoring might be flawless and it's technically this impressive garment, but it makes everyone around you uncomfortable because it's completely out of sync with the relaxed environment.
And that physical discomfort you're describing, it's very real for the listener.
Wait, really? Real discomfort?
Yeah, absolutely. People often assume that skipping contractions is just, native speakers being lazy.
Or taking shortcuts.
Exactly. But the text directly dismantles that misconception. It is not about laziness at all. It's entirely about preserving the musicality and the rhythm of the language.
Okay, so it's a rhythm thing.
Entirely. When you use uncontracted words, you are physically adding unnecessary syllables to your sentences. I will not is 3 syllables. I won't is 2.
Right.
If you force those extra syllables into a spoken sentence, you completely derail the native cadence.
So it's kind of like a drummer suddenly adding an extra beat to a measure where it doesn't belong.
Yeah.
You throw off the entire groove of the song and everyone on the dance floor just stumbles.
That's exactly it. And what's crucial psychologically is how native speakers interpret that stumble.
Oh.
When you avoid contractions in spoken English, you don't actually sound formal or polite, you sound angry.
You sound angry
Rather.
just by not using contractions.
Yes. Think about the situations where a native English speaker chooses to hyper-articulate every single word.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
It almost always happens when they're emphasizing a point out of sheer frustration. A parent disciplining a child doesn't say, don't do that. They drop the contraction and say, do. Not do that.
Oh, wow. They use those extra syllables as, like, verbal weapons.
Precisely. So if you bring that hyper-articulated, contraction-free rhythm into a friendly chat over coffee, you are accidentally broadcasting hostility. At best, you just sound like a machine running a script.
It's incredible how a single syllable can completely change the social dynamic of a room. You think you're being respectful by enunciating, I do not. But the other person is subconsciously bracing for an argument.
Exactly.
Well, if avoiding contractions throws off the rhythm of the language, that kind of begs the question, what exactly is this rhythm we are trying so hard to protect?
Right. And this is the holy grail of sounding natural. It all comes down to a fundamental categorization in linguistics.
Okay, lay it on me.
Many languages, like Spanish, French, Italian, or Greek, are what we call syllable-timed languages.
Syllable timed.
Right. In those languages, the lips, the tongue, and the breath do roughly equal work for every single syllable. Every syllable gets the same amount of time and emphasis.
So the rhythm is highly predictable.
Very predictable. It's very much like a metronome ticking at a steady pace. Tick, 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 tick.
But English operates on a completely different engine, doesn't it?
Completely different. English is a stress-timed language.
Stress time.
Yes. Instead of a metronome, the rhythm is dictated by the important words. We physically squeeze the unimportant grammar words together and we stretch out the important content words.
The nouns, the main verbs, the adjectives.
Exactly. The total time it takes to say a sentence in English depends on the number of stress words, not the total number of syllables.
That's wild. So it's much closer to a jazz beat, where the notes between the main beats are kind of rushed and compressed.
That's a great analogy, yeah. A jazz beat.
But I have to play devil's advocate for you here, because we are basically telling the listener that trying to enunciate perfectly, trying to pronounce every letter they see on the page clearly, is actively ruining their spoken English.
It sounds so wrong, I know.
Right. That goes against every instinct a language learner relies on to be understood.
It absolutely contradicts the beginner's instinct.
Yeah.
But what's fascinating here is the mechanics of the human vocal tract. They make this compression completely necessary.
How so?
To achieve this stress-timed rhythm, English relies on a very specific phonetic tool. It's a vowel sound called the schwa.
A schwa, spelled S-C-H-W-A. It's such a strange word for a sound that is just everywhere.
It really is. Linguists often joke that it's the laziest sound in the English language, but it's also the most common.
Right.
It sounds like a very weak, very relaxed, ugh. Physiologically, it requires almost zero effort. Your jaw drops just a fraction of an inch. Your tongue rests completely flat in the middle of your mouth doing absolutely nothing. And your vocal cords just bump out a tiny bit of air.
Ugh. Yeah, you don't have to round your lips or move your tongue at all. It's just,
Exactly. And the source text gives us this incredible operational rule. To achieve natural flow, you have to learn which sounds to kill so the important words can live.
Wow. Learn which sounds to kill.
Yes, and the schwa is basically the graveyard for all those killed vowels.
Let's look at the specific example from the text to see how this works in practice. The word is Police. Now, the robot reading that textbook pronounces every letter perfectly. Police.
Right.
They give that first O a nice round full sound, engaging their lips and taking their time. Police. But the human does something entirely different.
Right, the human kills the O. They identify that the stress of the word belongs on the second syllable, lease.
Okay.
Because the first syllable is unstressed, the O is replaced with the schwa. So instead of police, it becomes pious.
He's-less.
Exactly. The O almost completely disappears into that lazy sound, please.
It's subtle, but it makes a massive difference in the momentum of the sentence. You are literally deleting a clear vowel to maintain that underlying jazz beat we talked about.
And because we're constantly killing these unstressed vowels to keep the rhythm moving, the physical boundaries between the words themselves naturally begin to break down.
They bleed into each other.
Exactly. When you remove the clear vowels that separate words, the consonants just start crashing into each other.
Which brings us to what the text calls the Lego effect, or in linguistic terms, connected speech.
Connected speech, yes.
I really love the Lego comparison. Textbooks treat words like heavy bricks. You lay down one brick, you stop, you lay down the next brick, and you mortar them together with these big pauses.
Right, they're separate, distinct entities.
But in real spoken English, words are like Legos. They physically snap into one another to form a single continuous block of sound.
The technical terms for this are liaison, or linking, and it is the absolute architectural foundation of spoken English.
It reminds me of the difference between cursive handwriting and printing in block letters.
Oh, how so?
Well, when you print, you lift the pen off the paper after every single letter. The output is extremely clear, but the physical act of writing is slow, it's rigid, and it's exhausting.
Right.
But when you write in cursive, the pen never leaves the paper. The letters just bleed into one another to maintain speed and a fluid motion.
Yes.
In spoken English, your vocal cords are the pen, and once they start vibrating at the beginning of a sentence, they really do not want to stop until the sentence is over.
That is a perfect visualization of the physical reality. Stopping and starting airflow requires the vocal folds to open and close, which actually takes muscular effort.
It's tiring.
It is. The human mouth is inherently economical. It creates shortcuts to connect words, so the pen, as you said, never has to lift.
Makes total sense.
And the text highlights 3 specific types of these Lego snapping shortcuts that native speakers use automatically.
Okay, let's walk through these. The first one is consonant to vowel linking. What does the anatomy of that look like?
This happens when a word ends in a consonant sound, and the very next word begins with a vowel sound. Because the mouth wants to keep the air flowing, the final consonant literally jumps across the physical space between the words and attaches itself to the front of the next word.
The text uses the phrase, pick it up.
Right. A robot treating those as bricks says, pick it up. They snap the air 3 times.
Pick it up. Yeah, very choppy.
But a human snaps them together. The K sound at the end of pick jumps to the I in it.
Pike it.
Yes. And the T at the end of it jumps to the U in up. Acoustically, it naturally morphs into pikey-tup.
Paquita.
Exactly. It sounds less like a 3-word phrase and more like a single 3-syllable word. Pikey-tup.
The pen never lifts off the paper. Okay, the second type of shortcut is where the physics of the mouth get really fascinating, I think. Vowel to vowel linking.
Oh, this one is great. If one word ends in a vowel and the next word starts with a vowel, the mouth has to cross a gap without stopping the voice. To do this, the vocal tract actually invents a brand new consonant that isn't anywhere in the spelling of the words.
The source text uses the phrase, go away.
Right. If you say go away fluidly, think about what your lips are doing.
Okay.
To say go, your lips are pushed forward and rounded into a tight circle.
Yeah.
To say away, your mouth has to open and relax. The physical act of unrounding your vibrating lips to move from the O to the A actually creates the acoustic sound of a W. Go away. Yo,
Oh,
where?
wow, yeah. I can feel my lips making the W just by transitioning between the 2 postures.
Yeah,
You aren't deciding to add a W. Physics is just adding it for you.
exactly. And the third type, intrusive sounds, is the exact same aerodynamic concept, but it generates a different hidden letter based on tongue placement. The text uses the phrase I am.
Okay, so when you say I am, naturally, it spawns a tiny invisible Y. I am.
Yes.
Like the sweet potato. I am busy.
Haha, yes, exactly like the sweet potato. The tongue is high in the mouth for the E sound at the end of I, and as it drops down to make the A in am, that downward slide while the vocal cords are vibrating produces the Y sound, I am.
That is so cool.
It really is. Now, understanding this reveals a major cognitive reality about how native speakers listen.
Which is?
You might think that speaking like a textbook, pausing between every word to be extra clear and precise, is doing the listener a favor.
Right, you'd assume being clearer is better.
But if you pause to separate those words, you actually make it significantly harder for native speakers to process what you were saying.
It just seems so backward that being clearer makes you harder to understand.
It has to do with pattern recognition. Native speakers are not listening for individual words. Their brains are wired by decades of exposure to listen for these connected chunks.
So they're expecting the Legos.
Exactly. They are actively listening for the sound pattern pick it up. If you give them pick it up, their brain encounters an unexpected pattern.
Ah, I see.
It has to pause, translate those separate hyper-articulated bricks back into the connected Lego structure it expects, and then process the meaning. By being too precise, you are introducing cognitive friction.
Wow. Okay, so we have the jazz beat of the schwa, and we have the physical Lego blocks of connected speech.
Right.
But a highly advanced AI can replicate stress timing and linking and still sound completely devoid of humanity.
Absolutely.
The missing architectural pillar here is the melody.
Intonation. The music of meaning.
The source material paints a very stark picture of this. Robots speak on a flat, horizontal line. Humans speak in rolling waves. We use pitch, the physical tightening and loosening of the vocal cords, to create high and low frequencies, to signal meaning, sarcasm, urgency, and emotion.
Intonation is arguably the most powerful and honestly the most dangerous tool in spoken English.
Dangerous. How so?
Because shifting your pitch completely changes the factual definition of the words you are saying.
Oh, right. Let's use a classic linguistic example to show how pitch alters reality. Take the sentence. I didn't say he stole the money. 7 words.
Yep.
If I keep the sentence exactly the same, but just move the peak of my pitch to different words, the meaning transforms entirely. So if I spike my pitch on the first word, I didn't say he stole the money.
That implies someone else said it. You're defending yourself.
Exactly. But if you shift the high pitch to the verb, I didn't say he stole the money. Now, you are implying that you might have hinted at it or written it down, but you didn't physically speak the words.
Right.
Let's move again then. I didn't say he stole the money. Now I'm accusing someone else in the room. Or, I didn't say he stole the money. I'm implying he stole something else, maybe the jewelry.
It's the exact same grammatical structure, but the pitch peak acts as a spotlight, telling the listener exactly what piece of information matters most.
That's wild.
And beyond just emphasizing words, pitch dictates the entire social function of a sentence. The text contrasts two major melodic patterns.
Okay, what are they?
The first is uptalk, where the pitch of your voice rises at the very end of a phrase. In English, that upward trajectory universally signals a question or a sense of uncertainty.
Like you're asking for confirmation.
Exactly. It's a melodic invitation for the other person to respond.
And the opposite is the falling tone,
Yeah.
where the pitch drops heavily downward at the end.
Right. A falling tone signals absolute finality. It signals authority and confidence.
Like a judge hitting a gavel.
Yes. Physiologically, dropping your pitch lowers your volume and slows your momentum, which tells the listener, I am done talking, and this is a definitive fact.
So if we think about the learner who has mastered the grammar and the vocabulary, but their pitch remains locked on that flat textbook line.
Yeah.
What is the sociolinguistic fallout of that? Do native speakers just hear the flat pitch and assume the person is experiencing a language barrier?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, they don't. And that is the invisible trap of textbook syndrome.
They don't hear it as a language barrier.
Not at all. Native speakers don't hear a flat tone and rationally think, they are translating from a syllable-timed native language. They hear a flat tone and immediately interpret it as a personality trait or a mood.
Oh, wow. They process the lack of melody as an emotional state.
Yes. If you speak entirely on a flat line without the peaks of excitement or the valleys of finality, you sound fundamentally bored.
That's love.
It is. You sound disinterested, apathetic, or even depressed. The person you are talking to will subconsciously feel that you don't want to be there, and they will naturally cut the conversation short.
Even if you're actually having a great time.
Exactly. You might be internally thrilled to be having a conversation in a new language, but because you are focusing so intensely on perfect pronunciation, you project an attitude of total indifference.
It's a tragic communication breakdown. You think you're failing because your vocabulary isn't big enough, but you're actually failing because your vocal cords aren't stretching.
That's perfectly put.
Let's demonstrate how all these pieces fit together. The source text has a great interactive exercise, and I want you, the listener, to try this with us right now. The sentence is, I am going to the office at 8 o'clock.
A very standard sentence.
Very standard. First, let's look at the robot style. Take this one. This means relying entirely on the textbook. I'm going to pronounce every single word with equal strength, equal time, separate them with pauses, and keep a completely flat pitch. Ready?
Go for it.
I am going to the office at 8 o'clock.
Wow.
It actually requires a lot of physical effort to speak that way. Stopping the airflow to block out those words feels exhausting.
It really is. You are fighting against the natural aerodynamics of your own throat.
All right, fix it for us. Let's hear the human style.
Okay, to do this, we are going to apply the 4 shifts. We are going to use contractions. We are going to reduce the unimportant grammar words into schwas.
The lazy
Right. We are going to link the consonants and vowels together like Legos. And we are going to add a rolling wave to the intonation, peaking on the important information. It sounds like this. I'm going to the office at 8.
I'm going to the office at 8. The difference in speed is staggering. But more importantly, it is ironically so much easier to physically say.
That is the stress-timed rhythm operating at peak efficiency. The only words that get full, clear vowels and a spike in pitch are office and 8.
Because those are the content words that carry the actual data.
Exactly. Every other word in that sentence is just grammatical glue, so they get crushed down into tiny linked schwa sounds, collapses entirely into go into the...
Go into... It almost becomes a single fluid prefix attached to the word office.
And that compression is what allows your voice to glide effortlessly right to the information that matters, giving the listener's brain exactly the pattern it expects to hear.
So synthesizing the framework from the text, shifting from robot to natural, really boils down to 4 distinct physical changes. First, vowels. You have to stop pronouncing every vowel clearly and let the unstressed ones decay into the lazy schwa.
Second, word flow. You have to stop pausing between words and let the hidden consonants link them together.
Third, emphasis. You have to abandon the metronome and only stress the content words.
And finally, mood. You have to trade the monotone flatline for the peaks and valleys of pitch to convey your intent.
Whether you are preparing to present at a high-stakes international business meeting, or you're just hoping to have a more natural chat with a barista at a coffee shop abroad, the ultimate takeaway here is incredibly liberating.
It really is.
Perfection is the enemy of natural communication. The textbook gave you the foundational blueprints, but to actually sound human, you have to be willing to smudge the ink. You have to get a little messy.
Before we wrap up, looking at all this research made me realize something deeply paradoxical about where language is heading.
Oh, what's that?
Well, this entire source text focuses on how humans can change our speech to sound less like machines. We are actively trying to unlearn the textbook so we don't sound like a GPS or a customer service bot.
Right. We're trying to inject the humanity back in.
But consider the flip side of this dynamic. Think about how much time we spend today talking to AI voice assistants, automated phone systems, and digital avatars.
A lot. Every day.
Right. And how do those systems speak? They speak in flawless, uncontracted, perfectly enunciated, syllable-timed robot English. They operate with absolute textbook syndrome.
That's true, they do.
Sociolinguistics tells us that human language is highly adaptable. We subconsciously mirror the speech patterns, the vocabulary, and the rhythm of our conversational partners.
Oh, wow. I see where you're going with this.
So if we are increasingly spending hours every single day interacting with AI that speaks in perfect, rigid blocks, will that constant exposure eventually start to flatten human intonation?
That is a terrifying thought.
Right. In our effort to be understood by the machines that run our lives, will humans gradually abandon the schwa, drop the connected speech, and start talking more like textbooks? Will the robot style eventually become the new standard for human style?
It flips the entire premise upside down. We're spending all this effort learning how not to sound like machines, while the machines might be slowly teaching us to sound exactly like them.
Exactly.
Well, it is definitely something to mull over the next time you find yourself carefully over-enunciating a request to your smart speaker, just to make sure it turns off the right lights.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the messy musical mechanics of spoken English. We'll catch you next time.